The HOA Queen's downfall, a firewood heist gone wrong. That morning, I woke up expecting to be greeted by the crisp winter air, the scent of fresh pine, and the simple satisfaction of stacking up a roaring fire in my living room. Instead, what I found nearly made me question my own sanity. My firewood was gone, not just a few logs, not just a small dent in the pile. Every single piece, wiped out. The neatly stacked supply I had meticulously arranged just yesterday had vanished without a trace. At first, I stood there blinking at the empty space, my brain scrambling for an explanation. Had I miscalculated how much I had left? Had I moved it somewhere and forgotten? No, that wasn't possible. Just yesterday, I had spent an entire hour stacking it to perfection, making sure it was dry and ready for season. And now, nothing. Not even a stray splinter remained. My initial annoyance quickly turned into suspicion. Someone had taken it, and not just taken a few logs for an emergency. They had stolen my entire supply. Grinding my teeth, I stormed back inside and pulled up the footage from my security camera. If some firewood-obsessed raccoon had suddenly developed a taste for lumber, I needed to see it for myself. But what I saw on that screen, it was so much worse. There she was, Karen, the self-proclaimed queen of the HOA, the woman who had single-handedly turned our neighborhood into her personal kingdom, where she made the rules and broke them whenever she pleased. And she hadn't even tried to be sneaky about it. With her ever-present smug expression, she strutted up to my firewood pile in broad daylight, barking orders at some poor, clueless neighbor who just happened to be standing in her warpath. Then, with a grand, exaggerated wave of her hand, like some kind of royal decree, she motioned to two hired movers who were apparently in on her latest power trip. Without hesitation, they loaded my firewood onto the back of a pickup truck, piece by piece. Karen didn't look around in guilt. She didn't hesitate. She didn't leave a note or offer an explanation. She simply took what was mine, as if it had always belonged to her. Disbelief settled into my bones, quickly replaced by a boiling rage. I already knew exactly what her excuse would be. She would claim it was some HOA violation, something ridiculous, like my firewood wasn't aesthetically pleasing enough for the neighborhood standards. Or maybe she'd try to argue that it was a fire hazard, even though plenty of people had similar setups in their yards. But none of that mattered. Karen made the rules, and Karen broke them whenever it suited her. Fueled by pure indignation, I stormed down the street straight to her house. And of course, it looked exactly as you'd expect, the HOA throne room itself. The front yard was decorated like a monument to suburban control, an overly polished mailbox, a perfectly aligned garden, and an unnecessary American flag display that she used to justify all of her insane neighborhood policies. I barely had a knock before she swung the door open, already looking irritated, as if I was the one inconveniencing her. Before I could even get a word out, she plastered on that fake, condescending customer service smile. "Oh, Jake, good morning. What a surprise. What can I do for you?" I didn't return the smile. My arms were crossed, my jaw tight. "You can start by explaining why you stole my firewood." Karen blinked, then let out a mocking scoff. "Stole? Oh, Jake, that's such a harsh word, don't you think? I merely repurposed it, for the good of the community." I felt my fists clench. Repurposed it? Karen, that was my firewood. I paid for it. I stacked it, and now it's gone. Karen tilted her head, speaking to me as if I were a child too slow to understand simple logic. "Jake, you know as well as I do that the HOA has certain standards. Your firewood pile? It was, well, frankly unsightly. It didn't match the aesthetic harmony of the neighborhood. I was doing you a favor by removing it." I grit my teeth. "Karen, it was stacked in my backyard. No one could even see it." She waved a dismissive hand, as if that was a minor inconvenience in her grand scheme. "That's not the point. The HOA's annual bonfire is coming up, and we needed extra firewood. Your pile was the closest and most convenient." I let out a humorless laugh. "So, what you're telling me is that you just helped yourself to my firewood because it was convenient for you?" Karen sighed dramatically, clearly already bored with this conversation. "Oh, Jake, it's just firewood. I don't see why you're making such a fuss." You can always get more. That was it. That was the moment I decided that Karen had made a huge mistake. She had spent years bullying this neighborhood, twisting rules, and acting like she was above everyone else. But this time, she had messed with the wrong person. As I turned away, an idea formed in my mind. A brilliantly devious idea. Karen thought she could take whatever she wanted without consequences? Fine. I was about to show her just how wrong she was. By the time I got back to my house, I was already in motion. I rummaged through my garage, pulling out supplies, my plan coming together perfectly. A few hollowed-out logs, a bag of fire ants, tiny creatures whose bite could make even the toughest person cry, and just enough patience to wait for the perfect moment. Karen had declared war, and I had just the right way to strike back.